So I'm going to talk about using a mattock to remove small trees. So what is a mattock? If you're not familiar with it, these are both mattocks. There's two kinds that you commonly see. One is a pick mattock. So it's got an adze end, which is basically what makes it a mattock. That's for digging and cutting in the ground, and then it has a pick end. So it's a pick mattock. And that's not the one that I'm going to use today. The kind that I like to use for removing small trees is this, which is called a cutter mattock. So it has an adze end like the other, but it also has an axe end. And you use these to cut the roots so you can remove small trees with the stump. And I use that for removing buckthorn, but you can use it to remove any small or nuisance tree. And then whenever I'm using a mattock, I also need at least one other cutting implement. So today I'm using this brush hook. I actually made a whole video about this, so you can check that out. I'll put a link. But the other thing that can be handy is a small folding saw like this little Silky, and a light axe like this, and brush axe is also really useful for this kind of thing. So I also have a very short video of the brush axe, just how to replace the blade, but they're something, they're a bit safer than the other two kinds of cutting tools, and they're quite handy. They're very effective. Even safer than the brush axe is a big heavy pair of loppers like this. So I'm not going to bring that out with me today, but it's pretty useful. It can be, of course, very efficient cutting pretty big woody stems. So yeah, consider bringing a pair of those if you're working with the mattock. All right, so the first thing I do is take whatever cutting tool I have and get rid of excess branches that are in the way. Okay, so what I don't do is cut it all off. I leave a bit of sturdy stem, or one or two stems sticking up, and the reason is that then I can use this to like leverage out the roots and move them around, see where they are before I cut them, and it just makes it a lot easier to get out. Okay, so now what I do is cut around the base and cut off any roots. Sometimes it's good to do a light hit just to make sure there's not a rock right there before you really send it. So I can feel those roots. That's probably actually the big root. Often these small ones have one or two big roots. That's really big. So you basically chop it out same way as you would with an axe. I think that one's cut. And we kind of okay, there's another root. Cut. Sometimes you can use the other side, especially for like tough roots. It works a little more like an axe. And the other thing is, sometimes you can't walk all the way around the tree, so you can just get around that by switching to the axe side. Root. Okay. Or, you know, if you got a lot of rocks, you can save the axe side sharp and use the adze side where you think you might hit a rock. But at least where I'm working, you are going to hit rocks. So don't worry about it too much. Okay, so once you've got most of it, then you wiggle it. And so you can see by the way the soil is moving that there's another root right there. So you're like, okay, one there is not all the way through. Cut it. Okay, and then you pull it back and forth using the end that you save for leverage. Okay, so there's another root that's not cut through right here. Cut that. All right, so now last couple. There. Tree's out. If you want, you can then cut off these. Depends on what you're doing with it. If you're burning it, doesn't matter. If you're putting it through a wood chipper, the roots seem to really get stuck in it. So then, in that which case, I would cut them off. But yeah, that's how you remove a tree. You can remove bigger trees. See, those are the really big roots. You can remove bigger trees. I've certainly done so. It just takes more work. And smaller trees are quite easy. If you're moving a lot of really small trees, it actually helps to get a lighter mattock, because this one, I don't know if it's got a weight stamp on it, but you know, they're usually like 6 pounds or so, so they're heavy. There's a lot of work. This is a hard working tool. You want to, you know, rest your back fairly often. At least I do when I'm using this. But it does get the job done. So there you go, a mattock. I use a cutter mattock to remove nuisance or invasive small trees. So I'm brushing the dirt off. You don't have to do this, except I guess you should definitely do it before you put, like any tool, before you put it away for the winter. But I'm just done with this for the day, so you don't have to clean it off. But I do when I'm going to sharpen it, because I don't want the grit to damage the file. So I sharpen this with files. I have 2 out here. I have a super heavy coarse file that I use if I'm trying to fix a lot of damage, which I don't have right now on the adze end. I just have this one. And so I did hit a couple rocks, but I don't maintain these edges perfectly. So if there's some nicks, I don't try to get them out, because of course you just lose a lot of life in the blade that way. But I do tidy it up, and I do fix major damage, and I do hit rocks all the time with this. So I've set up the edge. You know, I didn't have like a target when I filed this, when I set up the edge the first time, but I measured it just now, and it is pretty close to 35 degrees at the main bevel. And that's a pretty steep grind, and that's durable, and that is mainly what you want for something like this that goes in the dirt. And so I also add a secondary bevel that's even steeper. I don't know what that is, but yeah, 35 with an even steeper micro bevel, and you know, it's not a razor blade. It is a tool that gets slammed into the dirt. So that's how I sharpen it. Yeah, it's not even sharp enough to cut me. Well, almost. But that's fine. I'm gonna stop there, do the other side. So I think the other side has even more damage, but we'll see. So I think I probably got this angle about the same. And I'm just redoing the secondary bevel to basically straighten out the rock nicks. And that's it. That's good enough. There's no point in getting it razor sharp because it'll lose that the first strike you take into the dirt. And every strike goes into the dirt when you're using this thing. Yeah, just a little bit. So the edge is, you know, back to being an edge. And that's how much I sharpen it. It only takes a minute. Typically, even if you have hit a couple rocks, and then it's back ready to work again.